you guys tired of covering this? Aren't you guys tired of being here and having to cover all of these mass shootings?
From every corner of government, from the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, DOD.
You know, people who go to Davos to talk about climate change fly private.
We're going to talk about the Nashville shooting a little bit, also the weaponization of the IRS against a pretty prominent journalist, John Kerry, and his Davos private planes fighting climate change, and also digital blackface. What is it, and can you avoid being accused of digital blackface? All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks for coming back. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Ooh, live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Tuesday, March 28th, the year of our Lord 2023. Been a while since we've seen you. Welcome back, America. Also, back finally. If you hadn't been following or attuned to things, been on the road with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens on the TPUSA Live Free Tour. But we're back here finally in studio. Maybe you'll talk about the tour later on at a different date because there's too much to get to today. But it's been wild. It's been fun. But we are now back, hopefully, day-to-day here at the Digi Bunker. That being said, this is the story that everybody's talking about. Nashville school shooting yesterday at a private Christian school in the Nashville area. Gunman walked in, killed 6 people, children and teachers. And there are a lot of angles to this story. Notwithstanding, it's a terrible tragedy. Nobody wants this to happen. Everybody is looking for a solution. And I think that's the precipice of where my thoughts are starting. Nobody wants this to be happening. Like I said, it can't be reiterated enough. It is a terrible tragedy every time this sort of thing happens. And it seems like everybody is continuing to spiral into their usual camps. And personally, I don't want to relitigate all of this stuff. So just a peek behind the curtain here, there's been a couple times I've gone on a couple different news stations and debated people on gun control and all that sort of stuff. And like clockwork, I get a text from a producer on a show that I've gone on a couple times talking about gun control. Hey, do you want to come on and talk about gun control and whether or not it's effective or what you think the solution should be? And at this point, I'm just exhausted by that conversation. Obviously, if you've watched this show, I tend to be in the camp more of protect the kids at schools. Why don't we put security? We have more security. A friend of mine said this. We'd more security at the local Best Buy than we do on a lot of college campuses. Which is not how things, then we do a lot of schools, which is not how things should work, especially, with people being, I don't know, as heinous as they are. So all that being said, there's a lot of different angles of this, and I feel like a lot of different people are talking about a lot of different things. You can talk about just the overall event itself. There are videos out there. We're not going to show it to you here. There's really no video that I'm going to show clip-wise on this. There's video out there about the cops and their honestly great response to a terrible situation. There's people talking about the angle that this is a transgender person that went to the school, which is a thing in and of itself. There's people making the case for no guns. There's people making the case for more guns at schools. There's Joe Biden talking about ice cream in his response to this that people on my side are furious about. But I can't, I don't know, man. Outside the gut-wrenching heartbreak of what happened at the school, it is getting increasingly more difficult to rehash the same argument over and over and over and over again of, look, we've another friend of mine, John, had on his Instagram this morning saying, look, when 9/11 happened, we still have the effects going through airports. I do it every single day. I don't fly every single day, but I do it a ton, where the effects of 9/11 are still prevalent everywhere in TSA security checks. Do I want schools to be a fortress in terms of having kids go through medical detectors and all that sort of stuff every single day? Not really. That's not really the vibe that I think I want kids to encounter when they go into a place of learning. But at the same time, what's the alternative? The people that are arguing for the whole gun legislation, my question to them continues to be, how? How? We have, I don't know, how many hundreds of millions of guns in this country? You want to take them all? Like, how's that? How are you going to do that? That tends to be the argument that I base on that. And if that's not possible, so what's the next best alternative, which seems to be having security at all of these schools to protect kids from this sort of thing. That's generally where I tend to lean. I'm not going to go off on some, I can't believe Joe Biden made a joke and talked about ice cream. Mostly because that's not surprising. And none of this, unfortunately, is surprising anymore, including the producers texting me to go yell at somebody on some cable news show about gun control and debate, as much as you can call it a debate when you're on that sort of dumb format. But the bottom line is this: nobody wants this to happen, but nobody, for some reason, is willing to sit down and have a logical conversation. They just want to get into their camps. And I'm talking about both sides primarily. I think the right side of the aisle, the more, hey, guns are out there, let's protect ourselves crowd, the crowd that I tend to more align with, is more open to having the conversations of like, hey, what's a realistic solution? And then you've got the other side that goes into their fundraising mode of, we got to ban all the guns. There's a clip at the beginning of some mom or somebody saying, aren't you guys tired of covering this? And my answer is yes, but the solutions are very, very far apart as to how you stop this sort of stuff, or at least mitigate it. I'm going to let the story unfold a little bit more as to this person being a mentally unstable transgender person. That somewhat is starting to become a theme. The shooting in Colorado, I believe, there's a couple other shootings that involved trans people, which different conversation for a different time, but a lot of people can point to the fact that, hey, this is still in the DSM as a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria is technically a deficiency, according to their own guidelines. And by they, I mean like the psychiatric community. But I'm gonna let that unfold rather than jump to conclusions of what happened, because I frankly I don't know and nobody knows, and I think the 24 to 48 hours after these sorts of things, things are still unfolding and unraveling. So I'm not one to jump to conclusions on that front. Let's see. A lot of people in the comment section kind of saying a similar thing. Yeah, see people talking about like the doors at the elementary school, and they shot through the glass doors, and the locked doors wouldn't have done anything. Yeah, again, rather than argue about the details, I would love for people to put aside the semantics and talk about, all right, what is a reasonable strategy to deter/defend against these very unfortunate situations. But that seems to be that. We'll probably leave that there. Again, we'll talk about this throughout the rest of the week, just because I feel like there's going to be more that comes out and more that comes out. And I'm going to try as best not to dive into my camp of, this person is clearly mentally disabled, then you can't, what do you do about that? If there's no criminal record, if there's no nothing, how do you take these? There's so much impossibility being thrown around on the more gun control side. It seems just so unrealistic. And I would like to take a realistic approach to figuring out how to stop this. Again, the bottom line here is that nobody wants this to happen. And so the people that are shouting of, if you don't support gun control, you want this to happen, those people are dumb and don't deserve a seat at the adult conversation table. But again, terrible situation, and we will continue to talk about it more as it goes on. But speaking about, I don't know if this is a good transition. I don't want to make that. But weaponizing the IRS. We're hard transition here. We'll get back to the Nashville stuff as kind of more stuff unfolds, maybe later on in the week. But I think I've said all I need to say. It's a terrible situation, and I wish the sides weren't screaming at each other all the time. But talking about something completely and entirely different, the weaponizing of the IRS. Now, if you're not familiar with the Twitter files, Matt Taibbi has been doing a great job at uncovering a lot of the censorship and now we're finding out, government involvement in social media companies, Twitter specifically. He's finding that out through a bunch of backlogged emails that it was given to him by Elon Musk, the guy who owns Twitter. Now, this story is kind of an ongoing thing. We've talked about the Twitter files before. When the first Twitter file thread was launched, we went like full blown on it. And since there's been a lot more since then. But the other day, Matt Taibbi was testifying in front of Congress and said something interesting. And what he said is interesting. But what the fallout seems to be of that is even more scary / damaging / dangerous. Take a listen to what Matt Taibbi said, and then we'll go into what happened to him after that at his home. Watch this, and we'll discuss on the other side.
Following the trail of communications between Twitter and the federal government across tens of thousands of emails led to a series of revelations. Mr. Chairman, we summarized and submitted them to the committee in the form of a new Twitter files thread, which was also released to the public this morning. We learned Twitter, Facebook, Google, and other companies developed a formal system for taking in moderation requests from every corner of government, from the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, DOD, the Global Engagement Center at State, even the CIA. For every government agency scanning Twitter, there were perhaps 20 quasi-private entities doing the same thing, including Stanford's Election Integrity Partnership, NewsGuard, the Global Disinformation Index, and many others, many taxpayer-funded. A focus of this fast-growing network, as Mike noted, is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. That last term is just a euphemism for true but inconvenient. Undeniably, the making of such lists is a form of digital McCarthyism. Ordinary Americans are not just being reported to Twitter for de-amplification or deplatforming, but to firms like PayPal, digital advertisers like Xandr, and crowdfunding sites like GoFundMe. These companies can and do refuse service to law-abiding people and businesses whose only crime is falling afoul of a distant, faceless, unaccountable, algorithmic judge. As someone who grew up a traditional ACLU liberal, this mechanism for punishment and deprivation without due process is horrifying.
So that's Matt Taibbi. Again, we know that whole thing. That's not news necessarily, but this is kind of fascinating. So that's Matt Taibbi, not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. He says himself he's a card-carrying or was a card-carrying liberal ACLU member. But then this happened. This is from Fox News. The Wall Street Journal editorial board reported that Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio sent a letter to the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel on Monday to ask why an agent of the IRS was sent to Matt Taibbi's home. According to the letter, the agent came to Taibbi's personal residence on March 9th, the same day that the journalist testified before the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government on his reporting of the Twitter files. The taxman left a note instructing him to call the IRS 4 days later. Taibbi was allegedly told that both his 2018 and 2021 tax returns were rejected due to concerns over identity theft. It goes on a little bit more to kind of explain this. Taibbi drew the ire of some Democrat politicians during his testimony that he had been attacked by liberal journalists for his work. And now, possibly, we are seeing that he is being targeted, potentially, by the IRS. Now, this is not an uncommon or brand new tactic by the federal government to silence people they don't want talking. You can look at all of, well, COINTELPRO is not exactly the perfect example of this, but probably the most recent example that comes to memory is, remember John McCain, Republican senator from Arizona, around 2011, 2012, at the time of the Tea Party movement, the people who didn't want the government spending money and bailing people out. Actually, that was way earlier than that. That might have been around 2008-ish. Remember when the big banks that were too big to fail all got bailed out and nobody got sent to jail? A story that Matt Taibbi, interestingly enough and coincidentally, was very, very prominent in writing about that. Remember when all those big banks failed and nobody was like, there's a bunch of people saying, don't bail them out. We can't afford to bail them out. We don't have the money. There needs to be some sort of budget constraint here. That was a $700 million bailout. At the time was massive. And it started an entire Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement being like, we can't afford this, which is, again, somewhat ironic now that we spend $1.6 trillion on quote-unquote infrastructure and throw around like it's nobody's business, but I digress. Back in the day, during the Tea Party movement that arose because of government overspending, John McCain unleashed the IRS on a bunch of the Tea Party proponents, in that he used the IRS to dig into the Tea Party and their erroneous tax documents or whatever, and used the IRS to tie up the Tea Party in the legal system so that they couldn't compete against Republicans. Because the Tea Party obviously is further to the right of Republicans, especially from a monetary spending capacity. So all that being said, this is not an unusual or new tactic. But this is somewhat worrisome with this guy, Matt Taibbi, saying, hey, just so you know, all of these social media companies have a one-way direct channel or two-way direct channel to a bunch of government agencies, including the FBI, the CIA, all of your three-letter HHS, your three-letter government agencies. They have a direct tie to social media companies. And then all of a sudden, this month, the day that he testifies in front of a subcommittee, talking about these government agencies interacting with social media companies, the IRS randomly shows up to his house and says, well, your 2018 and 2021 tax returns are rejected. Huh. Now, I don't know about the whole identity theft thing. Maybe that's legit, maybe it's not. But it is kind of freaking fascinating, or interesting to say the least, that that's the case. Now, Matt Taibbi himself did tweet about that, saying, for those asking, I don't want to comment on this IRS issue pending an answer from the chair, pending an answer to Chairman Jim Jordan's letter. I'm not worried about it myself. I do not feel the committee should be, but I did feel the committee should be aware of the situation. So apparently he's not worried about it, supposedly, but somewhat of a troubling situation, again, when you see the federal government weaponizing the IRS or the tax man, who, again, has the ability to put you in jail if you don't give them money for some reason, threatening a prominent journalist who is seeking to topple their social media federal agency relationship. So there's that. I want to get to this before we get to the digital blackface. You know what? No, we're going to do the digital blackface thing first, because I think that's funnier. Did you see this story pop up the other day? CNN, yes, CNN put out a story that read something like this. This is a tweet from CNN, a legitimate tweet. If you're white and you've posted a GIF or meme of a black person to express a strong emotion, you may be guilty of wearing digital blackface, writes John Blake. He has a lot of analysis here, but, yep, excuse me. Sorry about that. But his piece entitled, "What is Digital Blackface and Why is it Wrong When White People Use It?" Which is interesting because now people are capitalizing the W in white people. I don't quite understand that. Remember, they started capitalizing the B in black when you're talking about black people, and everyone was like, "Why are you doing that? You don't capitalize the." Oh, sorry. You don't capitalize the PI in Pacific Islander or the L in Latino when you're talking about them in situations. No need to capitalize the B in black. But anyways, the story starts like this. Maybe you shared the viral video of Kimberly Sweet Brown Wilkins telling reporters how she narrowly escaped an apartment fire. Ain't nobody got time for that. Perhaps you posted the meme of supermodel Tyra Banks exploding in anger on America's Next Top Model. Or maybe you simply posted popular gifs such as the NBA great Michael Jordan crying or drag queen RuPaul declaring, "Girl, if you're black and you've shared such images online, you get a pass. But if you're white, you may have inadvertently perpetrated one of the most insidious forms of contemporary racism. You may be wearing digital blackface." I hate to just read this article, but I think it's hilarious enough to keep going. What is digital blackface? Digital blackface is the practice where white people co-opt online expressions of black imagery, slang, catchphrases, or culture to convey comic relief or express emotion. This is hilarious. These expressions, what one commentator called racialized reactions, are mainstays in Twitter feeds, TikTok videos, and Instagram reels, and are among the most popular internet memes. Digital blackface involves white people play acting at being black, says Lauren Michelle Jackson, an author and cultural critic, in an essay for Teen Vogue. Jackson says the internet thrives on white people laughing at exaggerated displays of blackness, reflecting on a tendency among some to see black people as a walking hyperbole. I can't read this morning. That is hilarious. How about instead you go, no, these are people being people, and we use several other people, not including their race. The Jackie Chan what meme that goes around constantly. This is stupid. I was going to go through and list just off the top of my head the lots of different races doing different memes that are funny because they're funny, and nobody calls it racist, or wearing digital Latino face, or digital white face, or digital Asian face. That's not a thing. But for some reason, these writers in CNN decided it would be a good idea to make up a word for something that everybody does with everything in meme culture. If you're not familiar with meme culture, sorry about that, but that's what happens in the world of internet memes. But with everybody in meme culture, making fun of everybody equally. That's what America is. Now, obviously, the pushback on CNN has been strong, swift, and very, very snarky. They got lambasted for pretty much the entire day for this whole political publicity stunt, as I would like to call it. It goes on to say, why is digital blackface so wrong? But I'm not going to get into all of that because it's just ridiculous on its face. Look, nobody cares what the color of your skin is. If you say something funny or you do something funny in an exaggerated way or not, or if you're mean to be or not, you can talk about I told myself I wasn't going to do this, but you can talk about the two white girls that are crying and pointing and the cat sitting at if you're familiar with that meme, are we then making fun of white girls being over exaggeratedly emotional? Oh, this is terrible. No, it's funny because it's funny. It doesn't matter who's on the meme. It's funny because it's funny. You know how many Karen memes there are out there? There's a lot. You know how many anime memes are out there? Are we going to say that this is a disgrace to the Asian culture? No, you're not. The meme of the Indian dude who's like, what? Why are we doing this? I could go on. Bottom line here is the person that wrote this apparently is not at all familiar with the world of memes, as it is, in my opinion, the most equal and fair and that they make fun of everybody, or use everybody's reaction appropriately to respond to other memes in the meme world. If you're not really into the meme society, this probably is a rambling rant that you're like, what the heck is he even talking about at this point? But if you are, it makes sense. This is ridiculous, and I can't believe CNN published it thinking that people would be like, oh, yes, of course, this makes total sense. Of course not. They're going to make fun of it, as they should, because it is ridiculous. Lastly, I want to get to this, and this is the least probably pressing thing. I just thought it was funny. And I thought it kind of resonated a little bit. There's so many people in the comment section talking about this. Wow. Digital my butt, CNN. Yeah, the digital blackface thing is ridiculous, and it continues to be. Jody says, liberals make up the most bizarre poop, the most dumbest, joyless, useful idiots. Funny. Anyways, this is John Kerry, the climate czar in the Biden administration? Failed presidential candidate John Kerry, talking about private jets at Davos. I thought his answer was funny. I did a whole big thing, millions of views around the internet of the airplanes in Davos that fly in and out, people on their private jets, talking about climate change. It's ironic and it's hilarious. But anyways, listen to this from John Kerry. We won't spend a ton of time on this. I just thought it was a funny thing of what he said and how his brain works. Clearly, the people that think that they can justify this have different ways of how they see the world and how their mind works in general. Watch this.
Private aviation is an example of something where people are starting to pay more attention. And but when people who go to Davos to talk about climate change fly private, it seems like they don't want to make.
Well, they actually, I've talked to them about it. They offset. They buy offsets, they offset, and they are working harder than most people I know to be able to try to affect this transition.
Right.
So that's just John Kerry saying words that he thinks dumb people will be swayed by. Oh, no, they offset. How, John? How do they offset? Are you guys putting more not carbon into the air as you fly in your private jets? What are you talking about? I think he's trying to make the case of, well, no, the people that are going to this summit on their private jets, well, they are working very, very hard to, wow, geez, I almost said what they're actually doing. What they're actually doing is trying to make it very, very difficult for poor people in poor nations to survive, which is what this climate change initiative in many ways does. But what he's saying is, well, no, people that fly on private jets are doing so much to attempt to stop climate change that it's worth it for them to go, and they need to go on their private jets. Of course, that is not the case. That is not true in the slightest. But I genuinely think that he believes that. I don't think he's lying. I think he actually thinks that, well, no, it's fine for me because I alone, through my policy, offset the carbon emissions of my private jet. Okay, dude, I don't know how many people are buying your argument, but I can't imagine it's many. I would imagine that most people are saying, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because it is. So there's that. Let's see. That says offset with the electric stretch limo. I don't know. You know what? That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. It's kind of an abrupt ending, but yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I appreciate all of y'all that came back. Oops, sorry. A little bit rusty, a little bit tired. Yeah. So the last week was on. Let's see. Last Monday was in New Brunswick, New Jersey, with Candace Owens at Rutgers University. Last Tuesday, the next day, we were in Louisiana at LSU. The next day after that, we were at Ohio State with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. and then flew home on Thursday. Wasn't able to do the show, and then on Friday was just beat, and I think lost my voice a little bit. Yesterday we were in Dallas, Texas, so I was flying during the showtime, but we're back. I think we're back finally for an extended period of time. No more traveling for a while. If you missed us the last week and a half, that's why. Just been jet setting around the country, talking about freedom, which has been fun, but also exhausting. But the tour is over now. Really appreciate the Turning Point people and Charlie Kirk for inviting me to go do that. It's been a great time and a fantastic opportunity to go talk to the young folks of this country about freedom. It's been super fun. But anyways, if you're wondering where we were, that's where we were. Maybe I'll talk about some of those events later on, because it's fascinating it's just fascinating. I know we skipped out on a lot of big stories last week. Joe Biden's first veto, which I think I probably still will talk about tomorrow, because I feel like that didn't really get any attention. But the story that got massive attention was Trump's not yet arrest. Looks like they're backing down from that, so probably no need to talk about that any further. But maybe we'll catch up from some of the stuff later on in the week from last week that we skipped. But anyways, I'll stop talking. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in Jobob. You'll be able to find me pretty much anywhere. We're going to start streaming on Rumble. I saw a comment in there talking about Rumble. Working on that. Couple things in the works on that end. So anyways, you can give me a follow on any social media platform. Just type in Jobob. You'll be able to find me. Other than that, we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. God bless America.